Hey, it's the Magnificent One, the creator of the independent comic book Kinetic. Check me out on Indiegogo. So today let's talk about a little bit of Cobra Kai Season 3. Hey guys, this is the best show that's out there right now in my opinion, and Season 3 was a pleasant surprise. It got better than Season 2, I think. There's a lot of good things about this show. One or two things that kind of annoy me that I don't like, but overall, man, this thing is pretty good. So when we start looking at the story itself, it continues off from Season 2. It's a few weeks after that gigantic school fight that happened where people were getting thrown over balconies and getting paralyzed, and there was a Stingray, the adult who decides to become a security guard at the school and just starts beating up kids. I mean, that was kind of interesting. But in any case, this season does a lot to, one, develop characters, and probably the best part about it is you get to see the backstory of, one, John Creese, which was done very well, and the way it was put together and where it was put into the story did a great job of making you feel sympathetic towards that character while also making you hate the person he has become. So when we look at kind of the main stars, we can start with Johnny. Johnny, obviously, he's walking wrong. He's feeling terrible about what happened. He's got a tumultuous relationship with his son, Robbie, and he also feels that he's responsible for Miguel getting what he thinks is crippled or possibly even died. So he's kind of stumbling around being drunk. He goes through an interesting arc here because, see, Johnny is always like two decisions away from either being set on the right track or just completely throwing his life away. And that continues in this season. I think he gets to a good place at the end, but he does have to go through a few incidences of drinking himself into trouble, getting into some fights, and doing some stupid things. What I will say, though, is the actor William Zabka does a really good job of creating a very, very likable character. And I'll talk about likability here in a second. But likability is a big part of why this show does so well. Because William Zabka creates Johnny and portrays him in a way that you sympathize with him and you feel like, man, this is somebody I want to root for. My one concern, though, is I hope they don't do what they did to Homer Simpson. So for you guys who don't watch The Simpsons, Homer Simpson used to be like this blue-collar working everyman who was probably a little bit below average intelligence. But then as the seasons went on, they made him pretty much borderline mentally handicapped to the point where he can't do his, certain daily functions, it seems like. Like, for example, when they're going, Johnny stopped using his computer because he didn't know that you had to plug in the electronic device into a wall. That stuff gets a little way too stupid. So hopefully they don't go down that route of making him completely retarded and he's just a guy who's down on his luck. Now, when we come to Mr. Larusa, so Daniel's again kind of another person who we learned to like. And it was tough because the first season, the second season, to be frank with you, I didn't really like him that much. I was like, he turned into kind of a rich yuppie who is too good for everybody. But, I think this season kind of redeemed him a little bit because you got to see him as he travels to Okinawa trying to save his business. He's down in his luck too. But it's interesting, though, you see the dichotomy between Johnny and Daniel. Daniel takes responsibility. He goes in there and he fights for it. Whereas Johnny, unfortunately, he just kind of goes into a state of despair and just starts drinking away his problems. So that was really neat. Probably one of the best things about this, though, is when Daniel goes and he visits Chosen. So from The Karate Kid 2, when it came to Kamiko and Chosen, those are two characters I was really, really glad to see again. And it was nice to, again, I would say that whole story arc was about resolution. resolution of what could have been with that girl that he had an adventure with in Okinawa, and also chosen somebody who, fought he technically was in a death fight with. And I liked it. I liked how it was done. I liked the fact that you kind of didn't know what Chosen was getting to. And the surprise, like, live or die man, and then the hunk of the nose, just like it was in Karate Kid 2, was awesome. And, man, hands off to Chosen, keeping such a straight face and serious face up until that point, And what's neat about it is the techniques he teaches Daniel, he ends up using to fight Creese at the end of the series. So that was awesome. And also you kind of see that, like, as they became adults, Chosen became the much better martial artist, right? He kicked Daniel's ass. So I guess when you're 17 and 18 and you're fighting to the death in Okinawa, there's still a lot of room to grow as far as skill set. But it was very nice to see how that was done, and the way they wove that into the story of somebody who's running a car dealership but has international ties to these distributors. I think it is Toyota. I don't know if that's supposed to be a play of Toyota, but it seems like that was an interesting way of kind of putting that together. So another really good part about this was I liked the appearance of Elizabeth Shue as she came back. So when Allie comes back, she's only there for, I think, one episode, but maybe she makes a quick appearance in the prior episode. I don't quite remember. But when you start thinking about this show has shown the rivalry between Daniel and Johnny as a karate rivalry, but it really isn't. At the end of the day, this is two guys who started to fight because they were fighting over a girl. So what better way to resolve this conflict than to have that girl come back? And she takes a mature view, and it's really funny because she kind of comes back, 30 years later, 40 years later, whatever it is at this point, and is like, hey, knock it off, guys. I had a good time with both of you. But what I also liked is the show chose to bring her in to help Johnny get to where he needs to be as a human being, and not just as a romantic interest. And that might be because Elizabeth Shue probably couldn't commit to being a permanent member to the series. She's got other obligations. And if that was the case, that kind of was that would have been like the boring, predictable thing to do, just to bring her in and have her connect with Johnny. But instead, she does something where she lets him relive the past, but also helps him with his future. In fact, there's a point when they're standing outside waiting on Johnny's 1993 Dodge Caravan to be pulled up by the valet, where they're talking, and she's like, hey, it was great to revisit the past, but you need to live in the present. And that makes Johnny realize, you know what? I am going to be much better off if I'm Miguel's mom as a romantic interest, instead of trying to make this thing work with a girl I have not talked to in 30 years. So really, really liked how that was executed and how that was done. Big fan of that. So I don't think that could have been done better. So the other thing that I thought was absolutely perfect in this show is John Creese's backstory. Aside from the fact that the war scenes look pretty terrible, but it is nice how they did. They kind of did a throwback to The Dare Hunter, if you've ever seen that. That's a show about POWs in Vietnam who get captured, and the Vietnamese make them play Russian roulette. But in this case, it's similar, except instead of Russian roulette, these guys are actually fighting to the death over a snake pit. You can see where the name comes from. But what I like about that backstory is it humanizes Creese. You see, when you look at Creese the way he is now, he's this unbelievable force of nature where he has no sympathy whatsoever, no mercy, and he's a sociopath, a psychopath. And then it becomes a question of whether or not he was created that way, like that's his nature, Or was he nurtured that way? Was it a series of events that led him to have those beliefs that he has now? And the truth is, it's nurture. You know, when we look at the backstory of Creese, he's a good dude. You know, he lived a tough life. He was a guy whose mom got killed. He stands up to these two guys because one of the guys is hitting his girlfriend, gets his ass kicked, but then still keeps fighting. And then you see when he's in the military, he wants to be somebody. He wants to be a hero. And look at the values he's holding. Here's a guy who's willing to sacrifice himself. Literally goes, I will take the place of, I think the guy's name is Tommy, right? Yeah, Tommy. I'll take his place because I am willing to die for my friends, you know. And he does learn a lesson of not showing hesitation, not showing mercy in probably the worst manner possible. I mean, imagine you show a second of mercy and then it results in your teammates being killed, and then the survivors who weren't killed being forced to kill each other over a snake pit in a Vietnamese POW camp. It's gonna mess you up, so that's definitely where that comes from. We do get to see, not Tommy, Terry. I think I said it was Tommy before, but Terry Silver, as he comes back, he makes makes a reappearance in the show. What I will say is this: the way this was done was brilliant, because right before the final flashback scene of Creese, you see Creese in the present day, and man, you hate him. You see how he's corrupting Robbie. You see how he's fighting his former student Johnny. You see what he's done to Daniel Larusa by sending his army of students over there. You actually kind of hate him, and then you suddenly flash back, and 5 minutes after you've hated that person, you find yourself rooting for that young John Creese. So the show does a great job of doing that, because you start thinking about it. You know, John Creese was 17 when he joined the army, went over to Vietnam. He's fighting in a war, seeing his friends die. He's killing people. He's being forced to fight his commanding officer over a snake pit to the death. That's him at 17 and 18. So when he comes back and he sees these kids who are like, oh man, I've had a tough day because somebody said something bad about me on the social media, he probably goes, these people are so weak. I need to rid them of their weakness, of their silliness. And I could see where he hates that weakness, and I could see where he actually probably thinks by being very cruel to these kids that he is saving them and is making them into better people, because he's seen firsthand how that weakness in the most extreme situations can lead to, you know, people getting hurt and people dying. So this is him trying to be a savior to these kids. So overall, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Amazing season. I think season 1 was the best. I think season 3 is a close second. A couple of things I didn't like, though. These are small things. This show has remarkably bad timing. So it's interesting for a city like Reseda, where there's millions and millions of people walking around, how often people just bump into each other. But like when I say bad timing, I mean it's like, okay, so Miguel and Johnny are sitting eating brunch or sushi or something. The moment that Johnny gets up, Tori shows up. Or Robbie walks in on Sam and Miguel at the Miyagi dojo the moment they are about to embrace and kiss. Or like, hey, we're looking for this specific man in the middle of a huge area, and we just happen to see them at the gas station. Stuff like that. It's done in a way that's kind of a little too obvious. But again, we're also talking about karate dojo fights and stuff, so take that with a grain of salt as far as the believability. I will say though that there's just one thing that is really annoying to me, and that is that's probably because it's been done too often over 3 seasons, and that's the eye rolls that Miguel does. Like, it seems in every episode at some point he just starts rolling his eyes, and it's just this really odd thing. I guess maybe teenagers do that, but it just seems annoying, and every time it does it, it makes me not like him. I don't know. Small little thing. But anyhow, I do want to talk about likability and some of the challenges these characters have. Specifically, Samantha Larusa. I don't really like that character. I think the show tries to make her sympathetic. They try to say, hey, Samantha is actually going through a lot and she's done all these things. She's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder from the fight, and we're supposed to sympathize with her. But I don't know if it's the actress or if it's just the way the show was written, or the fact that she kind of is the bad guy if you think about it. Like she's constantly doing stuff that you shouldn't be doing. Like when in season 1, when she was with Miguel, she's like running around with Robbie. Like, I get it, that's supposed to be like, yeah, we're just friends, but yeah, that ended up not being true. And then like when Miguel's in a happy relationship with Tori, she's like, you know what, I'm just gonna screw this up. Like, she's kind of the cause of all this. And it's weird that like they blame Karate and some people blame like Johnny and Daniel. I'm like, blame Samantha. She's literally the reason those guys were fighting. So it's not really their fault, it's her fault. So it's hard to find her as a likable character. I think the character Daniel Larusa, he also struggled with that as well, as being likable. And that's kind of the big thing, right? Like Johnny Laurence, everybody likes Johnny Laurence, man, in this show. William Zabka does a great job, and you identify with him. You go, hey, this is a guy who's down on his luck, and you find yourself rooting for him. Same with Miguel. I find you root with him. Even with Robbie, man, like, he's a likable character. A lot of those people that you just like him. You just want him to do well. And the best part about this show, though, is the fact that when you take a lot of these characters who originally were not good people, like they were the villains. When you look at Chosen, you look at Creese, you look at even Johnny, none of them were good. But now you see the backstory, you see the character development, you learn to like them. And I think that was huge, especially with the John Creese character, because, you know, look at him. For 3 movies and 2 seasons of this, he's just been the most evil, hated person ever. So hats off to the creative team of giving him a backstory that makes him, at least justifies kind of where he comes from. Like I said, he was a product of his situation, not necessarily of his nature. So where does this go? So I got a couple of theories what's going to happen in the next season. I think a few things, just kind of as we look along the way the show has done things in the past. Like, I think Miguel's going to have issues with Johnny banging his mom, basically. That's going to cause a rift. And the thing is, we've never known who Miguel's father is. So maybe that's somebody from the previous Karate Kid movies as well. Maybe it is Mikey, the kid he fought in Karate Kid 3. Or maybe it's Terry Silver. You know, you don't know. But maybe that causes Miguel to go and take Terry or take Mike on as a sensei. Because that's kind of the same thing that happened in Karate Kid 3, right? Terry Silver comes along and he's like this new sensei, unaffiliated with any other dojos. And so Daniel goes and works with him. This might be a repeat of the same story. You know, Terry might come back and he might be like, hey, I've turned over a new leaf. I don't like that Cobra Kai stuff. I'm not into John Creese's crazy philosophy. And then Miguel falls under his spell. And you never know. It might end up being kind of a repeat there. I think obviously Tori and Robbie, they'll end up, you know, banging boots or whatever, getting together. I think the tournament will be, I don't think it's going to be Miguel who wins. It would be nice because I think Miguel is the secondary star of the show, the first being Johnny. But I think it'll either end up being Robbie, or it's going to be somebody like completely out of the blue, like Samantha or something like that. But I think there is room for the dojos to have some conflict within each other. I don't think it's going to go as smooth. I think Daniel and Johnny will kind of butt heads, obviously, with some of this stuff. But I also think that we're going to see a lot more of John Creese's backstory. And I hope that we kind of see if that comes to resolution. I would actually like to see if there's a way that John Creese actually comes back from the dark side, as they say. You know, I see him as like Darth Vader. And if there's a way that maybe at the end, maybe there's something that happens and he ends up, dying or something, but at the final moments of his life, maybe he turns turns good. Because again, he was a good guy at one point, as we can see. Other than that, I don't think Allie's gonna come back, but I do think that she might be part of some of the conversations, and Johnny might kind of look to that day that they spent together as a source of guidance and a source of inspiration to do the right thing. I would like to think that in season 4 that Robbie and Johnny actually do get together and resolve their issues. I mean, they were so close, right? You look at season 2, and right at the end, it was like, man, they were there. Like, he was taking Robbie to school. Everything was good. It was almost always good this time, too, if Johnny hadn't gotten drunk and just stumbled wrong, if he had actually gone looking for him or, shown up when he told him he was going to show up. I kind of don't get that. He's like, okay, I'm going to just sit here and pray for Miguel, but I'm not going to see my son. And that was really was messed up of Johnny. So I can definitely see why Robbie doesn't want to have him in his life anymore. Anyhow, that's pretty much all I have to say about Cobra Kai Season 3. I would say that this is a highly, highly recommended show to watch. If you haven't done so already, take the time, watch it, get some kicks out of it. Haha, kicks. Get some karate kicks out of it. And, enjoy some decent entertainment. Well, that's all I got to say. Thanks, guys. Bye. Hey, if you like this video, please feel free to like it and subscribe to my channel. Also, I'm on Instagram and Twitter, and I've got an awesome new comic book coming out on Indiegogo called Kinetic, which is about a girl who can harness the power of 1,000 dimensions to fight for good.